Hey, Ask the Spirit Guides community. We're having a little coffee today. Click. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. So, we're going to be talking about this boating accident. It was a pontoon accident, and I don't know, it seems to be spreading the news about it seems to be spreading around now. It happened on July 14th, I believe. July 14th, 2026. I'm going to tell you why we're going to be talking about that specifically. But I don't know how far reached it is, if it is. It was kind of an unusual circumstance, which is why maybe more people are finding out about it. So, yeah, we'll talk about the accident, and then we're going to be talking about 3D to 5D. Okay. So the accident being a the actual, what does it look like from the 3D? And how do we move to 5? So it's like 3D chaos, an accident, right? To 5D clarity. It's kind of what I'm trying to do in my own head and my spiritual practice. And I've relabeled the tagline or the purpose of Ask the Spirit Guides. If you go into the channel, you'll see at the top the description for it. And it is, what did I put specifically? Let's see. I think I wanted to make sure because I said, partnering with spirit as we make the shift from 3D chaos to 5D clarity. Okay. So that's really my goal now in whatever we're doing. I'm always just trying to keep that in the forefront. We're looking at 3D chaos to move ourselves to 5D clarity. So there's a reason of looking at the chaos, basically, right? Rather than us just sitting in the chaos, which is what you would get if you're just watching the news or just any platforms that's describing things and not helping us shift. So that's really my goal at this point. More so, I mean, we're going to be doing it on the public channel, but more so in the spirit circle at the playground level. That's our third level. We just added it. And so these are the kind of conversations that I want to have in the playground. So it'll take us a little while because I just added it yesterday or 2 days ago. It will take me a little while to get the, just kind of format down and how we want to do it. But this is basically what we're going to be doing, is having these kind of conversations. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about the accident and why it came into my attention, because the story is a little, the story hits home personally. Which is why it came into my awareness. So there was a pontoon accident on Lake Pepin in Lake City, Minnesota. There were 3 people who transitioned, and there were 3 people who did not. There were 3 couples on the pontoon boat. Okay. What is being reported now is that it was late at night. It was like quarter to midnight, 11:45 p.m. And the pontoon boat and a barge. So this is on the Mississippi River, basically. It's right off the Mississippi River, and Lake Pepin is literally, it's a lake, right? I mean, it's a lake that just comes out of the Mississippi River, but it's really one piece of water. Okay. So they collided. All right. And, obviously everybody got thrown off. The pontoon boat, a barge is, you know what a barge is, right? It's long, those really long, slow moving things. So I don't know what happened or why it happened. Like how that happened. If the pontoon boat didn't have a light on, if the barge didn't have a light on, I'm not sure. The moon wasn't out that night, who knows? So, the reason it hits home personally is that I have 2 sister-in-laws who live in Lake City. My mother-in-law passed away in Lake City. Like, we walk along that lake all the time. It's very, very small. It's like a drive-through city pretty much, up to the cities, up to Minnesota. My husband grew up in Wabasha, Minnesota, which is where all these three couples lived. So Wabasha is a town of like 3,000, so it's very small. And so my other sister-in-law and brother-in-law live in Wabasha. So one of my nephews went to school with one of the kids. Okay, so everybody in the town, two of them were firefighters. Two of that passed away were firefighters. So yeah, so I mean, my sister-in-law, maybe the one of them, they're just, I'll tell you, anyways, they just, my sister-in-law, one of them was the woman who passed, she was a hairdresser or hair salon person. And I mean, who knows, my sister-in-law, I haven't touched base with her yet, but my sister-in-law may have gone to her to get her hair done. I don't know, small town, right? Okay, so that just came into our awareness actually like a couple days ago. I didn't even know what was going on. Our brother-in-law just contacted Jim and said, "Hey, have you heard about the pontoon boat accident?" And so that was, and that had been after the funerals and all that kind of stuff. So that's really what happened. But the interesting, I mean, that kind of stuff, like, especially when it it's more personal, like it didn't touch me personally, but I know people it did. You know what I mean? And not only that, but what I found after I considered the whole thing and I've been sitting on it for a little bit, what's really interesting, which is what we're going to be talking about, part of what we're going to be talking about today, is that there were three couples. All three couples had children, and one parent from each family passed. So three people died, three people didn't. Three people died. One was a wife and two husbands, and the two people who survived were two wives and a husband. Different families, all three different families. So I'm like, from my spiritual standpoint, and now obviously if I was at the funerals or I was talking to the family, I would never say this, right? But we're not, that's not who I'm talking to right now. But my first reaction was, oh, like that's why I picked this mug today, like love wins, right? Because so my first reaction was, what? Thank goodness for that spirit. I mean, obviously those three chose that exit point for all different reasons, I'm sure. Everybody who's affected, if you believe what the lead team has told us about life plans and how we decide on exit points, we have these different exit points that we can choose. We don't have to choose them. That when we do choose them, that those who are in our lives all agreed that they wanted the journey, the spiritual journey that experience would bring. So that kind of stuff, like when I think of that outside of the situation, I can find relief. But when I just think of the situation, it's like the 3D part, it's like horrifying, right? To think that, there's three families in a town of 3,000 that just lost a parent. So that's my 3D, like, ugh, But my 5D clarity, right, is what an amazing thing that there wasn't one family who lost both parents. I mean, that could have happened easily. The boat, what it sounds like is the boat was tipped over and when they found them, three were hanging on to the boat and three were missing. So I don't know if the three, they might have gotten, hopefully, again, when I think from the 3D perspective, that they just maybe hit their head, they were just unconscious right away and they just went down, chances are pretty good that, from a 3D perspective, you start to like make speculations and, chances are this would be a 3D kind of speculation. This is just how I'm seeing it. This is a conversation. So I am not here or going to be we're not going to be having these kind of conversations in the playground, the spirit circle playground level for me to say, this is the way to look at it. I'm saying this is the way I'm looking at it. How would you look at it? Because then you can help me and anyone else that's reading the comments have a conversation. So we're having a conversation about it, right? Because there is nothing ever that I come on here thinking that I know to be true. But the questions are worth asking, right? Well, anyway, so if I looked at it from a 3D perspective, my guess is that's probably what happened, because these people all lived on water their whole lives. That most of them grew up in this area. So, and that's on the Mississippi. Okay, so I mean that's an assumption, right? That they would know how to swim, blah blah yada yada yada. I've even said, I said to my husband the other day, I said, because he doesn't know how to swim, and I said, so he doesn't like to go out on boats. I'm like, well, if you just wear a life jacket, but that doesn't mean that you can't transition if you have a life jacket on. In fact, there was a big boating accident not far from me in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I think it was July 3rd or over the July 4th weekend. A big storm came in. There was a whole bunch of people on families on a boat. The storm came in and they just hit a wave and the boat tipped, and 3 children transitioned. They all had life jackets on. They were all under the boat. And so I don't know what happened to the 3, if they couldn't keep them up. They didn't have enough space. I'm not sure what happened. But again, from a 3D perspective, that's just freaking crazy crap. And it does feel like 3D chaos, doesn't it? So, yeah. Anyway, so they were on a pontoon boat. Yeah. So I told my husband, you can't die. Nobody can die on a pontoon boat. I mean, I have said that before. Like, obviously you could fall off of it or whatever, but like, I mean, pontoons and those big, they're just, they're so slow, and they're, and this was a barge. So barges are huge, but they're very slow too. So you got to wonder, like, what the hell? But who knows how it happened. Somebody fell asleep, okay. So that's kind of what happened. So from a 3D viewpoint, we've got a terrible accident. Random, feels very random, right? Fear, how this kind of stuff happens to people. Like, is it ever going to happen in my family? That could have easily been somebody in our family who was with them. This is where people start to blame, who was driving, what was going on with the barge. So we get into all of that kind of stuff. Who caused it, why them, you get into all these kind of questions, don't you? Obviously there's several lives that have changed instantly, which always, when you hear about these kind of stories, it's hard not to internalize that and be like, wow, our lives can change instantly. And with all the other stuff going on in the world, it's just like one more thing. And when it hits a little closer to, home, it feels like even way more chaos, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there's stuff around your area, wherever you live in the world, that has happened in your direct town, that you hear about, right? So it's like the local news versus all the world stuff that we've been listening to. And it does feel, no matter how much work I do, there's always this first react, like this gut punch of how final that feels. Because it certainly feels final it doesn't quite feel final. I think for me, like, my first reaction is never final for the person who transitioned. Because I just know that that's not final. So I never usually feel bad if I have to think about this. I guess I don't. Of course I do. I guess I don't. I don't know if that's bad, but I don't know that I feel bad for the people who actually transitioned. It's always for the people who are left behind. So it's like that grief goes right to them. It goes to the person who transitioned if the transition was a difficult one, then I will go to that, you know, like if my empathy goes there, if I feel like there was something, you know, really difficult. So I hope, you know, you always hope that it was fast, you know, like they hit their head on when they, you know, when they fell out of the boat, or when maybe they hit their head on the way out of the boat, and then they, you know, maybe they all had life jackets on and they, you know, who knows? Chances are pretty good they didn't. I wouldn't have had a life jacket on. But it does make you wonder. We actually, some of you might know if you've been around, but last summer, we have a pool where we live in our condo area, and it's not heavily used, but a neighbor of ours had some friends over, and this woman, it drowned in our pool. I was there in 3 foot of water. So we survived. We revived her, but she did drown. She was not breathing, and she got tangled up in a noodle, and she was like going like this, and I was watching her actually, and her friend was in the water with her. They were talking, but we started laughing like, what is she doing? You know, like she was, and then she just started, we don't know if she just passed out, but then she went down, she just went like that, just sunk. So we had to get into the water, call 911. Someone, I didn't have to do it, but somebody who was there gave her mouth to mouth, which apparently you don't do anymore. You just do compressions. I didn't know that, but at the time, but I do now. That's not part of CPR anymore, apparently. The person who resuscitated her was a lifeguard, but like 10 years ago. So she was used to the old rules, but apparently you don't do mouth to mouth anymore. You just do. However, because, you know, I would have at least rolled her over, which she didn't do. I would have at least rolled her over and kind of like just make sure she didn't have any water here. But I wasn't in charge of that. So I was in charge of calling 911. But anyways, my point of telling you that story is like, you know, I'm an avid swimmer. Like I'll swim I was on the swim team when I was younger, so I can crank out the laps if I want to. I've often gone down to the pool by myself, but she drowned in 3 feet of water. So it's probably good if you're going to be in water to be with somebody, like have somebody else there. Just saying. So anyways, you just never know, right? Yeah. So if we were to look at this instead of looking at this from the 3D viewpoint of nothing about this makes sense, right? Like the pontoon boat thing, or even the woman drowning, you know, in 3 feet of water, you know? So that is where I leave, you know, I'm going to throw some questions out to you and let's have a conversation about this. Okay. I'll throw some questions out and give you some of my own thoughts, and then let's have a conversation about this. And just know that this is the kind of stuff that that we're going to be doing in the playground. Probably, you know, I'm probably going to put out shorter videos than this in the playground. I'll be like, hey, this is a situation that's happening. Here's the 3D chaos about it. How can we look at this from 5D? And then allow the community to be talking about it. Okay. So there's going to be, you know, because there's so much going on right now that I think this will be such a beautiful thing for us to do privately without, you know, people, you know, because there's so many things we could be talking about, looking at it from a 3D perspective, but how do we shift to the 5D? And so I'm super excited about that. So if that's something, I do have a QR code. I'll post it right here or over there. I don't know where I'm going to put it, there or there. For the Spirit Circle, if you want to take a look at the different levels. This conversation, again, short snippets. And then if you want to, you know, if you're dealing with something, like I just put a post out today for the playground and said, okay, what do you guys want to shoot the shit about? I didn't say shit. I put a little asterisk with the I, but I'm not opposed to a little swearing here and there. You know me. So yeah, what do you guys want to shoot the shit about? What are you seeing? You know? And so then what I can do is post the video and say, here's the situation. This is how I'm seeing it. How are you seeing it? And then give everybody the opportunity to have a conversation. in the spirit circle and do it privately. So super excited about it. So join us in the playground if you would like to do this kind of thing. Okay. And like I said, this is for the public channel. So this is not they probably won't be this long because I'll be posting frequently actually, because there's so many things going on that it'll allow you, if you're experiencing if you're seeing something in the world and you want to have a conversation about it, I'll be reading probably most comments in the playground more than I do probably anywhere else, so that I can capture what do you guys want to talk about in that group, because I just think this is where we get to go deeper, while still being able to process our feelings about what's going on in the 3D. I think that's the important thing. So that's why I'm super excited about no matter how many people are in there, because I want to be able to process my feelings just like I'm doing now about this pontoon accident. But then how do we look at it from a 3D perspective? How do we get, 5D? How do we get 5D clarity around this? Before I just pose the last questions, I do want to point out, though, something that I am learning. You guys know that I'm kind of obsessed with this book now, The Earth Experiment. It's Allison Chen and Daniel Scranton. And it's this is what we're reading in the practice. It's the second level of the Spirit Circle. If you're in the playground, you get everything we do in the Spirit Circle. But if you just in the practice, you'll get the book club too. But and if you want to support our channel, you can always buy. If you want to get this book, I highly recommend. You can always get it through our link in the description. It just gives us a little affiliate income. Doesn't cost you anything more. It's just a nice way to support our work. But the 5D in here, it's so funny because you can hear things from a bunch of different people. Like, what is 3D? What is 5D? What is 3D, 5D? And you hear it from a bunch of different people, and you just kind of take it all in. And then all of a sudden you hear something that you're like, yes, that actually makes sense to me. That's where I'm at with the information I'm getting in this book. That doesn't mean it's the only truth. It just makes the most sense to me right now. So, and like my brain can like process this information really, really well. And not only that, but I heard I actually responded to another comment the other day where someone said, well, I'm listening to all these different people talk about the 5D and everybody's talking about it's different. And my comment back was, well, what if it's all true? What if all of those explanations are actually true? So there's that possibility too, because we're always looking for the right answer. It's like, well, why don't we just accept that all things could be true at the same time? And all things may not be true at the same time. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm open to just thinking of things all being true at the same time. So there's a couple things in here about the 5D that resonates so heavily with me. And one of them, first of all, time in the 5D is this, what Kuan Yin says is, because Daniel Scranton is channeling Kuan Yin, Ascended Master Kuan Yin, who's from the Buddhist religion, from Buddhism. So she basically says that time in the 5D is very similar to time in the 3D. That makes sense to me. 5D is physical. That's why if you think of our Earth moving from a 3D to a 5D, the 5D is more of a physical, it's still physical. It's a physical existence. It's just that we are more spiritual. We're more spiritual. So that's the sense that I'm getting. I'm not using their exact words here. Like some wars may still happen in the 5D. There's going to still be some conflict in the 5D, but people are going to be way less likely to get away with that kind of stuff. And I can see it now, how we are moving, like even myself. So you guys know that I recently started canning. I'm going to have to give you a pantry tour. Pantry. It's like my basement storage room. I'm going to have to give you a pantry tour. And when you guys see it, you're going to be like, what the actual hell? Because I can't believe it has only been 3 months since I started canning. Okay, that is my personality type that I go game when I can't do anything halfway. It's just the way it is. Anyways, okay, so but my point of this is one of the things that Diana Cooper says in The Golden Future, which is another book we read in the Spirit Circle. Um, One of the things she says is that we're getting back to communities, right? We're getting back to trading. We may even have to trade with each other. Okay. Not have to, but we will want to. And it's so interesting because if you can see some of the stuff that's going on, that some of our structures are breaking down and we're all a little afraid about it. I mean, I'm sure these are the kind of things we're going to talk about in the playground because we haven't had a chance to talk about some of this stuff because I'm not doing that on the public channel anymore. And so, but you can see that there's going to be some systems that are breaking down. I mean, hello. It's just so obvious right now. But if that's where we're going to the 5D, well, what has to break down first for us to get to a place where we are back to communities, where we're back to trading with each other, that type of thing? Well, we're never going to get there unless we're forced to, right? So, but this transition is going to be, that's why, another reason why I wanted to start the playground, because this transition is going to be interesting to say the least. And I wanted to have a place for us to come and talk. All right. Privately. It's very hard. I know for some of you, you're going to be like, I can't believe you're putting that behind a paywall. I'm sorry, but it's too tricky. And I've done it. It's too tricky to do it publicly because you attract a whole bunch of different, it's too tricky. I'm sorry. If it's not affordable for you, we will look into, I don't know. I've always said that, but it's a little harder on YouTube people can gift memberships, but it's not permanent. If we move off platform, we would have a much easier time to gift and like give people free subscription, permanent subscriptions, but we can't do that on YouTube with the formatting. So anyways, so what was I talking about? Oh, the last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to pose the questions, and then you guys will have hopefully you'll have a conversation about this 3D to 5D boating accident, like how we look at it from the 5D. Okay. So my point with the canning thing, though, is it's so interesting. I've never had this experience before. So now I have all of these cans, okay? I joined a CSA, which is a community agricultural share. So I have somebody who's farming for me, basically, and I'm willing to pay them more because it's local. They're doing all the work, and it's organic. They don't use any sprays. They probably get drift, but I don't know how they deal with that. But anyway, so in the beginning, the first month or two, I was getting like pounds and pounds of asparagus. So I probably have 20 cans of asparagus that's pickling right now, and it is so delicious. Oh my gosh. When you get stuff that's just pulled out of the earth, there's nothing like it. And I'm not used to that. Like, I'm used to eating veggies that have been probably transported and out of the ground for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So that alone, just experiencing that is amazing. Just the taste buds. But so now I got all these cans, right? I'm just using this as an example. So where I live in a condo area, we have volunteer board members who work their tushes off. Well, every once in a while, I like to give them gifts because nobody pays them and they just work their tushes off. I'm telling you, like, for free. It's crazy. Like, I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it. I just have other things I want to do, but I'm just so grateful that they're willing to. So I gave each of them a can of asparagus, right? And I said, oh, it'll be a couple weeks. Just let it pickle for a little while. Well, one of them, and then the president, she came over and did another favor for us that, was kind of like last minute. We asked too late. And I gave her another can because she had told me that her husband was like, oh my God, I love this so much. So I'm like, cool. So I know that they like it, right? So because I wanted to apologize for this last minute request, I happen to have another can of it up here. And this was like maybe a month after I gave her the first one. So I was like, I just want to thank you. And she's like, you don't have to give it to me. I'm like, you did me a favor. I'm doing you a favor. Here's a can of asparagus. So just to have that kind of stuff around. And guess what? After that, she has a garden. Guess what I've been getting from her all of a sudden? No one's ever asked me to get gardening stuff, but she knows I have all the equipment. She came over with like 15 heads of fresh garlic that she grew. She gave me a huge bushel of basil. She gave me a huge bushel of sage. And I'm like, that's what trading is. So I've never really experienced this before. I know you probably think that's weird, but I've been a career person my whole life, living in a city where I always had access to things. So I'm loving it so much. In fact, another neighbor gave me this huge thing of dill. I told you about the dill. I did a video on, I don't know if I posted that video yet, on my dill vinegar that I made with it. Well, of course, she gave me the dill. And she brought it from her garden. She hauled it over. She didn't process it or anything, but she gave it to me. And so you bet she's going to get some of that dill vinegar. But I think if I do that, and I'm not doing it, I was always planning on giving her that dill vinegar with nothing expected in return. But I have a feeling I probably will. And actually, she got some of the pickled asparagus as well, because I did one with dill in it, with her dill. And actually, that dill that I gave her the pickled dill, or the asparagus with the dill in it, okay? With no expectation I'd ever get any dill again. And then she sends me a text. She's like, I have this huge thing of dill. I left it downstairs for you. And it was huge. I didn't ask for that, but she just gave it to me because she knew I appreciated it, because I was actually doing something with it. And like I said, you bet she's going to get some pickled dill. So I don't have to grow the dill. I don't have to harvest it. I mean, I had to harvest it, but like in terms of cleaning it up and stuff, but she hauled it from her garden, thought of me, had to text me, so that's a trade. You know what I mean? So fascinating. I'm really learning this now, and I think this is where we're going in the 5D, according to Diana Cooper. Now, if that stuff wasn't going on in the world, the Hormuz stuff, where I felt like, and we asked the lead team, and the lead team said we should probably get prepped for about 6 months. Have some at least, I don't know if you're new here, but that's what they told us. We haven't checked in recently. I don't have my rods here, but otherwise I'd ask them. But maybe if you have questions, we can ask again. But so yeah, they told us to have at least 6 months of food and supplies and whatever. So, and we had talked about on the channel, not in a way that we weren't panicking or anything, but just like everybody should just learn a new skill. And this is why. Now I have canning equipment. I have I'm getting obsessed with dehydrating now. Oh my God, dehydrated tomatoes, you guys. So good. Cherry tomatoes. Oh my God, that's another whole story. So, yeah, it's fascinating. So that was my skill. So now I've got this new skill and I can trade, right? And I even told my neighbors, I was like, yeah, I'll can stuff for you. And if I can stuff for them, I'm probably going to end up with some of the vegetables, right? I mean, they'll have to do the canning part. I'll just cook it for them. I'm not going to do all the processing part of it. But, I just find this fascinating. To me, that is a perfect example, which many of you probably have been doing this for a long time. It's just something that's new to me. So, but I do think that's what the 5th dimension is going to be, more taking care of each other, more care for us, more care for humanity. Maybe going back to like what it was more like in the 1950s. So that's beautiful. But you can see how the stuff's got to have to break down for us to get there. So enjoy the ride. I think we are on for quite a wild ride. Okay, so just to end the conversation, here are a few questions I wrote up for us to think about. How do you think about an accident like this? How do you get from 3D chaos, which it sounds very chaotic, like it's just random, 3 people died, 3 parents, of young kids, I don't know if they were all young, but still, it doesn't matter. Active community members. So this was the story about the hairdresser, actually. Colette is one of the wives that survived. Colette owns the hair salon. Okay? Her husband died. The woman who died worked for Colette as a hairdresser. So Colette lost her friend and hairdresser, not only a friend and an employee, and she lost her husband. So you know what I mean? When you go out on these trips together, I always wonder about that. Like when whole families go on trips together, if there's our family that lives in this area, the Wabasha, Lake Pepin area, there last year, was it 2 years ago? At least 20 of them went on an Alaskan cruise together. And I did have that thought, like, oh my God, can you imagine if something happened with 20 family members? That's so 3D, 3D thought. But anyways, okay, so 5D questions. So is this the question? Is this just 3D chaos, or is it something more? Is it something more? What do you think? Is it random, or are these things not random? What do you think? In where you're at in your spiritual journey, what do you think? This is the kind of conversation I want to have in the comments now. Okay? What do you think about the fact that one parent survived in each family? That's not hard to notice. To me, that is not random, but I'm wondering what you think about that. Yeah, I think that's it. This was an interesting question. I did run this through AI, and this was an interesting question. Like, I obviously put all my thoughts in there, but this was an interesting question she came back with. Can love be present in something it did not prevent? Can love be present in something it did not prevent? So love did not prevent those 3 people from transitioning. But that could be a whole conversation of itself. Because maybe it did. Maybe love actually allowed them to transition, is my point. I don't know. Okay, so those are the questions. The final question, the most important question, is what is this story, this conversation waking up in you? That's the most important question. And that's why I want to have these conversations in the playground, because so many things are happening. We don't have time to process. And again, the playground conversation, I'm literally probably going to be like, here's the situation. It's going to be like a 5-minute video. So, because I want us to be more processing with each other. So here's the situation. This is how I'm seeing it. Here are some questions. Okay. So then we can talk. That'll give me more time then to read comments too. Because that's really the question. What is this waking up in you? What is it waking up in you? And I will ask, what is it waking up in me? But if we don't take time, slow down and ask these things, every single thing that's going on. And I think that's what the chaos wants. They want it to be too hard to slow down and ask these questions. So we're going to do it. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me with Coffee with Karen. I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.